What's up, everyone? This is Mayan Gordon. We are back for Alive at 5 with another amazing guest. It's been a little bit of a while since I've had a guest on the show, but today we've got Dr. Stacey Gonzales here, and I'm really excited, along with you guys, to get to know her better. Stacey and I connected through LinkedIn. She invited me to be a panelist at an amazing, is it a career-based kind of career day for high school students virtual event that's going on. So I'm very excited about that. But also really excited just to hear more about her story. If you guys have any questions as we're getting into the dirty details of everything, please just go ahead and post a comment. I will make sure to read those out and ask Stacey any of your questions. And right before we get started, you guys know what I'd like you to do. If you've ever watched before, go ahead and comment one thing that you're grateful for today, or 3 or 4 or 5, however many you like. And let us know, where are you watching from in the world? I'm coming to you from Spokane, Washington, where it's 5 o'clock, but you might be watching on the East Coast where it's 8 p.m., in which case I really appreciate you. Or you might be in an entirely different country. No matter where you are, let us know where you're watching from. So, Stacey, first of all, thank you again so much for being on today. And I'd love if you could just start off by telling me and everyone else, who are you as a person? What do you do? How would you characterize yourself to someone who's never met you before, but you wanted to form a fast relationship with and friendship with?
Well, gosh, that's a great first question, because it's not like, what do you do or what is that about you? But it's like, who are you, right? And that is probably one of the most powerful questions we can answer or ask anyone. And so I would say I'm a person who cares deeply about other people.
I love it. I love it.
That's who I am.
Too. Right? I resonate with that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So my follow-up to that would be, how did you come to care so deeply about people? Is it something that was always intrinsic from like your early childhood? Is it something you developed over time? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. I think for me, like, I can think of times when I didn't care about people, which when you can look back at something in your future or in your past that you now in your future self are like, I didn't really like that part of me. It's probably because there's a part of you that is that real person, right?
Yes.
So the caring deeply part. So I can think of times where I wasn't that way. Like, I have 2 younger sisters. I was.
You're an oldest too? Oh my, yes, I can raise my hand to exactly what you're going to say, where you tortured them.
I tortured them. I made them write essay papers when I was babysitting. Like, that was the rule. Like, I was the teacher, because I was in my career as an English teacher, right? I was a teacher. And so, like, now I can see how, like, being mean to my sisters was writing English papers at home.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm the oldest of 4. I've got 2 younger sisters and a younger brother. And when my second youngest sister was probably between the ages of like 6 and 10, me and my brother would have this game of, can we make her scream? Because she had this horrible high-pitched, like blood-curdling scream. And whenever she screamed, the parents got mad at her. It didn't matter whose fault it was. She was the one who was screaming like crazy. She got in trouble. So we played this game of torture her till she screams and get her in trouble, which, again, looking back now, I'm like, that was not a good sisterly thing to do. But totally resonate with that. And I just want to shout out a couple people watching right now. What's up, Anthony? Thank you so much. Who's coming to us from Toronto, Canada. Love my Canadians. We got Damon, who's from Seattle, Washington. What's up, Damon? I grew up in Seattle. Let us know, what part of Seattle do you live in? I know all the neighborhoods, so I'm definitely curious. And Kristen, you're in Spokane. What's good? Let's connect sometime and grab a coffee together. I'd love to meet you, Kristen. All right, let's get back to it. So where did you grow up, Stacey? And kind of what was life like for you growing up? Did you have, 2 parents, a mom and a dad? Did, they get along? Like, what was all that like?
Yeah, good question. So I am Hey, Abel, I am a South Side Chicago girl. So I grew up in the South Side of Chicago, which means, like, Chicago, we separate ourselves North Siders, South Siders. So if you talk to people from Chicago, they're going to tell you which side they are. Anyway, so a little south of Chicago, and mom and 2 parents who pretty much were probably, like, to be honest, like white flighters. So moved us out to the suburbs, right? As where we were living in the city was changing. And then I grew up kind of where I'm at now. I've traveled and been around, but still in the same general vicinity where I grew up.
Oh, wow, that's so cool. Did you move away for any period of time, or have you pretty much stayed in that
Yeah,
area?
we moved about, interesting story. We moved right before the 2008 crash. We built this house, Tim Gonzales and I, in this town, not very far from where we grew up. And we thought we would love it. And 1 year in, brand new house. I mean, like when you build your first home as like
Yeah,
a Gen
I
X.
gotta pause you real quick. When you say built your house, do you mean like you bought a piece of land, you found contractors?
That's a good point. So we purchased the house with the contractor came with it. Like, so we did purchase the land, but like the builder was already building other houses in the neighborhood.
Okay, got you.
I didn't
Yeah.
have to get an architect or something that fancy.
Yep.
But I picked up my countertops. I picked out how many rooms. I picked out the layout. Like there was stuff. And 1 year in, I knew it was not the right place for us to live.
Wow. How did you know?
There were just a couple of things, like neighbors made comments that seemed off. I never felt settled, like I belong in this house.
Was it the house or was it the neighborhood or both?
A little of both. A little of both. And so I just said to Tim, this was right before the crash, because if you remember, like market prices were skyrocketing.
Yes.
I put a for sale sign in the front yard. Somebody drove by and offered us the asking price the next day.
Amazing. Wow.
I'm like, okay, I guess we're going to move. And because of that, we moved to a neighborhood where it was just this quote unquote melting pot of different ages and people and backgrounds. And that was if you don't live with that, you can get that in a community like a LinkedIn.
That's really cool. Do you think that you just happened to find that? Did you specifically, after figuring out this isn't what works for us, like go and seek out something that you thought would? Like, how did you end up from a place where you realized this is not right for us into a place right afterwards where you went, this is the spot?
Yeah, I think we knew that, especially like racially more diverse. So we knew it was going to be racially more diverse, which we valued and we wanted. Yep. We knew the schools were not like, we knew they were fine schools, but we also knew like as parents, we could be involved in the schools. So like,
gotcha. Did you do a lot of research or did you just know these things from being kind of in the area?
Yeah, a little of both. A little of both. I mean, I am a big like Google what you can, look at ratings. I mean, the internet has so many resources for us at our fingertips. So if you don't take advantage of those and aren't knowledgeable, that's on you.
Yeah. No, I agree. And, one of the things that I really speak to, because I also, I grew up in Seattle, Washington, which I think I thrived in more or less outside of the social context, because Seattle, at least in the places where I grew up, was not community driven to everyone. It was much more segmented. So the Jewish community was really the Jewish community. And if you were kind of like an outsider or didn't fit right in, there wasn't as much community for you. Same thing. After that, I went to a middle school that was mostly all Black kids and Asians. And I did not fit in as a white kid. And there wasn't real community for me, versus when we came to Spokane, we realized that the community was, and again, there might be biases that I'm not aware of. Like maybe it would be different for someone who's Black or Asian coming to Spokane. But for me, I felt so much community where everyone just wanted to be, be friendly and like get to know you and say hi and wave to you on the street, even if you didn't know them. And so I knew that for me, that was really important. And that it took me a while of searching around for that and like physically going and traveling to lots of different towns in Washington State and in Oregon before I found the one that I connected with. And once you kind of feel that connection in a place, I think it's, especially when you've tried out other places, you really get a sense for how much value it's going to bring to you. So that leads into my next question, which is like, what are some changes you saw in your life play out that directly were related to you moving to a place that was, more supportive of who you are as a person?
Yeah. That's a really great question and a really great metaphor, right? Like unless you move, you literally physically, it's almost like how we grow, right? We have to move our thinking. Like if you keep thinking the same thing you thought 10 years ago. So, right, I had to make some real decisions. One of those decisions was like I didn't live as close to my sisters and parents. So
Right.
I told you I grew up here. So I have two younger sisters, like back to my being the mean oldest sister. Yep. And they all live, we do now, but they all lived within a 2-mile radius. So it was a very like, I had to be very intentional because that was not the norm to move that far away. I was the rebel to move that far away from my parents. Right. And so being back, one of the things, since I've been back in this area 5 years and being now within that back in that 2-mile radius, I have to be very intentional about my boundaries. Like I don't need to see you every week, just like I didn't see you every week before or every day or talk to you every day before. But if you go back into an old familiar space, you have to do it with the new skills.
So would you say that kind of moving around and realizing these different things forced you to be more intentional than you previously had been?
For sure.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And now tell me, what did that intentionality in terms of making those decisions around how much time you're spending with family also play out into other areas of your life? And the reason I ask that, just to contextualize it, is something I've noticed to be true is when I'm more intentional in one area, I become more intentional in every other area. And so I just want to hear a little bit about what are some of those other areas that you saw this ripple effect happen through?
Yeah, that's super wise for your age, right? Like to know that now, that if you laser focus in one area, it transfers into all these other things. So I'm a mom. I have a 20-year-old and an 18-year-old, almost 18.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it's awesome, but it's super hard because you think you remember yourself at 18. You don't really remember yourself at 10. You know everything about 18.
Yes.
So like, I think I know everything about her at 18. No, I don't. It's her experience, right? Yep. So if I'm super intentional about the way I lead at work, let's say I'm just going to make a real small adjustment inside. I'm like, I was kind of rude to that person. I'm not going to, then when I'm home, I cannot be that way with my daughter. Like right. if I just was intentional at work in this way, I can't come home and treat you or with you in my next meeting.
Yeah. Yeah, no. And it's especially, I think now with COVID when I assume you're working from home. Is that correct?
Some days.
Go out? Some
days. Back in and out.
In and out. I guess here's another question before I say what I was going to say. When you travel to work, is that a short commute, a long commute?
Super short, 5 minutes.
Okay, cool. That supports what I wanted to say, which is especially when that juxtaposition is so close together, it makes it much easier to realize. Like for me, I am working from home. I have a home office. And when I get off a Zoom call and I was super nice and understanding and non-emotionally attached to what someone else was saying, I can't then completely switch when I'm talking to my husband and he brings up like a problem or something he's struggling with. I have that same mindset of like, I'm going to listen, I'm going to, validate and acknowledge, but I don't have to get upset about like what you're saying. I can be there supportively because that's what I would do with someone else who I just talked to. Like I wouldn't just own these feelings that are not my feelings. I would say, oh, okay. Like I totally understand where you're coming from. Like that makes a lot of sense. How can I support you? The same way that I would do with someone who I'm not married to. And for me, that was a really big process of realizing, wow, the control that I have when I'm dealing with other people is something that I can just transfer and translate into all of my relationships. And so that's been a really big thing. And as I kind of prepare to be a mother in the next, hopefully, couple years, that is something I'm very thoughtful of that. Boy, motherhood's hard. I mean, fatherhood's hard too, but like there's a lot of emotions there in, protective sense in terms of like how much love you have for them, but also in terms of, like you just said, how much you think you know about them or what's best for them, and trying to balance that with what you do actually know is best for them because you have better, your brain's more developed and you have a better capacity for judgment, and just trying to balance all of those things must be a whirlwind. So I'd love for you to kind of speak to that next. How has it been being a mother throughout these, 20 years, and what are some I'd say, things that really stood out to you that you'd like to share with people?
Yeah, thanks. That's a great question. I think up until recently, I've underestimated how hard it is, especially if you are going to work in any way, shape, or form, because you are doing one or the other. You're being a mother or you're working. Like there is not even on the days when I was teaching in the classroom and I would grab my kids, because this was before, it was those days where I just tell my students, stay in the classroom, I'll help you after school. I'll be right back. I'm gonna run to the daycare, grab my kids and bring my kids back in my classroom with my kids as I help, right? You'd never do that. That'd never be allowed. Right. But like those kinds of things, I was still giving up one for another. I was leaving my students alone in the classroom to wait for me while I drove to the daycare, or I was ignoring my children, telling them sit in the back corner and be quiet and play with each other while I tutor the students.
Right.
You can't do both. You can't do career and mom perfectly well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so it's okay. I would tell people it's okay, and you're not going to, but you can feel a satisfaction in both. Because then you can flip it on the other time. Like I went and got my kids at the daycare. Like I got to spend that car ride time with them or whatever it is.
That's awesome. So quickly, just because we've been talking a little bit about it, what is it that you do for a living so that people know?
So they have an idea that I do something. I am a school district administrator. So I started my career as an English teacher, high school English teacher. And then, you go through these levels of administration. So it's basically like, how have I climbed the ladder in a school district? So now I work at the district level, and I work with teachers, division chairs, who are like the people who see the teachers, and the assistant principals. That's mainly who
Awesome. I have a question that's kind of just purely my own curiosity, but how did you transition from being a teacher into a leadership management position within kind of the school system?
Yeah. So in school systems, you have to get the special certificate. And a lot of people will go and get the degree, but they won't apply to the state, and you have to take an exam. Think of it as like similar to passing the law bar or something like that. It's that you take a test. And so you have to study, and then you take this test. Sometimes some states you turn in a video. So I did that. I got certified, and then you start applying for jobs, and you apply for jobs.
That's awesome.
Building or
straightforward.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you just like I'm going to try this. Well, I have nothing to lose. I'm going to put myself out there and apply.
Question about that. So was it something you were trying in a sense of adventure and exploration, or was it something where you were trying to achieve something or a new level of what you already perceived you were doing?
I think it's both. I think it's I need to go to the new level, along with I need to push myself for something more. Right? Like, so I kind of feel like it's just this little bit of, I want this adventure excitement. And if I have that, I'm going to push myself. Like this virtual career day that you're doing for us. I have a vision. I say, it's in Stacey Gonzales' head, you guys. I promise you, just go with me. You're going to see it. It's going to be beautiful. It's next level, but it only lives here for a while.
Yeah.
And it's only as good as other people can see it. And so if you don't take the chance to design it for others to see it, and they never get to move to a new neighborhood, how will they see it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So did you get a lot of support? Like when you came up with this idea, was there a lot of pushback? What was the kind of response as you shared? Because I think this is a really cool process you're going through that a lot of people can relate to, in that you had an idea in your head. It's awesome. But now you have to get really a large number of people to buy into it and support you, not only on a saying go for it level, but actually contributing their time and energy. So what has that process been like?
Yeah, so you only need a few people at first, and you only need a few really solid people that like know the core of who you are.
Oh, I love that.
And once they know the you, like the real you, like who you really are, they will go with you. And so you take them and you're like, here's the vision, you guys. I know it's going to sound a little crazy at first, but like, go with me on this. And then they start to see it and get excited because they believe in you. And they have like a couple more people that they bring on. And then that grows. But there's also a point where I'll be real honest. There's like, so those core people, they'll also tell you this. They will say things like, hey, just so you know, these people over here who've done it like this for the past 15 years aren't real happy with what you're doing.
Yes. Or they'll say something like to the same lines, well, these people did it this way and it worked, so we should follow in their footsteps, not your new idea that in path you're creating. That's the one I get more than the one you mentioned. But absolutely, I think there's always a level of doubt, both internally and externally, that literally is always going to be there, whether it's minuscule or whether it's kind of giant in your face. I think that's something that as an entrepreneur, as a mother, as a human being, we have to face doubt, and doubt as an obstacle that we just have to overcome. The doubt is not stopping us. It is not saying that we're wrong. It's really not saying anything at all, except that, hey, you just have to keep going and you have to climb right over me.
And I love how you said, it's not good or bad, right? It's an obstacle that's there. And so instead of feeling like I need to resist this terrible thing, like I need to resist and I have to, no, how about like, I see you there. Okay, I'm still going forward. I mean, we're still moving.
Yeah.
I might not have enough moderators, but you know what? We're still going. It's going to be just fine.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, a lot of times the doubt comes from a place of perfection or ideology, where the doubt says it could be this. And you can acknowledge it. You say, you know what? It could be that. But I'm going to keep going anyways. Like, if it's that, that's okay. I'll adjust. If it's something different, that's okay too. But I'm going to be taking these actions to try and reach this goal, because it is the actions that I'm taking that lead to the real result. It's not the result that leads to the result.
It's the momentum.
Yeah,
absolutely. When that object in motion tends to stay in motion, object at rest tends to stay at rest. If you are just at rest and you aren't making any action, you can't get any opposite reaction. Like, that's a law of physics. I live with a physics teacher who's remotely, so that's like for real. I can guarantee you that.
All the physics metaphors on this one. Yeah. That's awesome. So I want to wrap it up as we're getting kind of deep into it. What are some last things that you want to leave people with, or just some things that you want people to be thinking about? I can tell that you're someone who does a lot of thinking, both about like your students and your community, and the people that you're trying to lead, but also internally as a mother, as kind of all the different roles that you fill. What are some things either that you've been thinking about, or that you'd like to get other people to start thinking about?
Yeah, that's a great question.
I'm throwing all the hard ones at you today.
Yeah, right. And, it's that question, like that being for all of us to be, how can we help others engage in what's real? And there's a lot of nonsense being thrown at people right now. And there's a lot, people are isolated and people are feeling disconnected. But like, what can we have, and what areas can we start to engage with each other on? Let's start just philosophically, because I think if you start talking to people philosophically, I mean, you and I haven't talked about politics once. There's an election that hasn't been called yet, right? Yeah. And I don't know what you believe in. You don't know, and it doesn't matter, because we've been able to connect.
Yeah,
that's what matters.
Absolutely, and that ties it all back to kind of who you are as a person. And I think that's really something, everyone needs to think about, not just one time, but your whole life. You should be coming back to that question of, who really am I? Because it's very likely you're going to change as a person, maybe not at your deepest core, as in you'll always care about people, but where your focus is in terms of your emotional and your mental and your physical energy. And it's okay wherever it is that you are. The more aware of it that you can be, the more you're going to be able to share that in a kind and generous context, to have these types of conversations, even with people who are very different from you. And that's, I think, something that we all can work on getting better at, is, talking and having conversations with people who have completely opposing ideas to us, who we maybe really don't even like their ideas when we first hear them, but starting to realize, this is another human being. I care about people. And I really believe that everyone watching this and everyone in the world cares about people. I think that's part of what being a human being is. It's in our nature that we need each other. That's why our greatest punishment that we deliver is isolation. Like that's literally the worst. And if you watch any, I love kind of like the drug police action movies. It's like totally my genre. In every single one of them, right? It's someone saying, I'd rather die than go back to jail or like be in isolation. And I really think that that's a shared commonality we all have. And so when you can remember that this is another human being and I need them on this planet, I need them in this world. So let me give their ideas a little bit more empathy and context and try and understand why they see things that way and I see things so differently is a really beautiful thing that we can all work on and engage in. So I really appreciate you sharing that. I really appreciate you being here on this show and sharing all of your ideas and just who you are as a person. If people want to get in touch with you personally or find out more about this awesome career day that you're putting together or just what it is that you do, how should they get in touch with you or find out more info?
Yeah, so the best way is LinkedIn, right? So I can either put it in the chat or we can share this out on your page, but pretty much LinkedIn or I have a website, SG for Stacey Gonzales, creativeconnections.com. So
awesome.
Creative Connections, that's who I am.
Perfect. Well, thank you again so much. Thank all of you guys for watching. I really appreciate each and every one of you. And I will be back tomorrow with just a short live at 5, little, dishing of the truth, sharing of my experiences. And again, you guys have an amazing, amazing night.